I'd only been in Willow Creek for 6 months when Helen Carter, the HOA president, decided to make my life hell. I'm a software developer, finally able to afford my first homey, a cozy place with neat lawns and a community pool that screamed perfect suburban dream. But Helen? She was the dictator in a blazer who ran the Homeowners Association like her personal kingdom. When my parents, Michael and Eleanor Harris, and my sister, Lily, a med student, came to VY sit after 3 years apart, I was over the moon. I scrubbed every inch of the house, planned local outings, and couldn't wait to show them my new life. That joy lasted about 2 hours. A sharp knock on the door interrupted our coffee and catch-up session. There stood Helen, her face pinched like she'd bitten a lemon, rattling off fake rules before I could even say hello. "Mr. Thompson," she snapped, "per Regulation 17.3b, no overnight guests are allowed for more than 48 hours without board approval. And Regulation 22.5 prohibits more than 2 unregistered guests at once." I blinked, stunned, as she pointed to my parents' cars in the driveway, calling them a street appearance violation. I tried explaining they were just VY sighting for a few days, but Helen was a brick wall. "Rules are rules, Mr. Thompson. Pay a due law 150 processing fee and wait 14 days for approval, or they leave." Her smirk was pure venom. Then she squinted past me. "Are those new curtains?" "That's a violation of Regulation 8.2a. I was humiliated, my family watching this absurdity unfold. My dad, Michael, a county judge, stood quietly, his eyes narrowing, but he said nothing. I paid the fee to get rid of her, gripping the doorframe to keep from exploding. That night, Dad pored over the HOA covenant, his reading glasses low on his nose, scribbling notes. "This isn't about rules, Ethan," he said softly. "This is about control." My sister, Lily, whispered, "Dad, don't turn this into a crusade." But we all knew that look in his eyes, the one that meant he was already 3 steps ahead. The next morning, I chatted with my neighbor, Tom Rivera, a CIVYL engineer who'd lived here for years. "Helen's got favorites," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Her friend get a pass. Everyone else gets fined for breathing." He told me about a family forced to sell their home after Helen buried them in fines for excessive holiday lights. Dad joined us, casually mentioning his judge title, and Tom's eyes lit up. "You might just shake things up," he said. Dad and I dug into the HOA rules, finding vague clauses and contradictions that screamed abuse. He pulled state records, revealing Helen had been president for 8 years, with her lackey, Robert Klein, a retired accountant, as VYC president. When Robert showed up unannounced, snapping photos of my parents' car and citing an unpublished rule about street parking, Dad calmly quoted Georgia law. Penalties must be announced 30 days in advance. Robert scurried off, flustered. The harassment escalated: fines for grass a 1/4 inch too tall, trash bins 6 inches out of place, even excessive watering during a rainstorm. Robert parked across the street daily, photographing us like a creep. When I confronted him, he smirked, "Prove it's harassment." Lily, quick on her feet, held up her phone. "I've recorded everything, and it's backed up online." His smugness faltered as he sped off. We decided to crash an HOA meeting at the community center. Helen tried to block my family, sneering, "Homeowners only." Dad stepped forward, voice steady. "Judge Michael Harris, Fulton County Court. I'm just observing." Helen's face went white, but she let us in. The room was tense, residents silent, scared. Helen listed violations, glaring at me for unregistered guests. Dad raised his hand, asking about a due law $45,000 legal consultation fee in the budget. Helen snapped, "No questions from non-residents." I jumped in. "I'm a homeowner and I want answers." The treasurer, Susan Lee, admitted she didn't know the details either. Whispers rippled through the room. A retired professor, George Mason, nodded at Dad, and a young homeowner, Claire Nguyen, scribbled furiously, sharing notes with her neighbor. Helen rushed the meeting, sensing the shift. Afterward, Dad requested financial records, citing state law. Helen refused, hissing, "Control your guests, Mr. Thompson." Outside, neighbors approached us quietly. "Thank you," one whispered. An elderly man, Henry Brooks, warned, Helen forced out 3 families last year. Be careful. He shared stories of a single mom fined for her kids' noise and a nurse targeted for late-night shifts. Back home, a new doula $750 fine awaited us for disrupting the meeting. Dad's jaw tightened. All right, Helen, game on. We launched our counterattack. Dad called his old friend, real estate attorney Laura Bennett, who confirmed the fines were illegal. Lily scoured online forums, finding 7 dropped complaints against the HOA. Then came the bombshell. Helen and Robert owned a consulting company, Horizon Solutions, siphoning doula $200,000 in HOA funds. We met a former resident, Sophie Evans, who'd sold her home at a loss after Helen's relentless fines. They targeted anyone who didn't fit their VY Shown, she said, showing photos of other VY Timsa family denied a wheelchair ramp. Another fine for a college acceptance banner. Helen doubled down, issuing absurd violations like unauthorized gatherings for us eating breakfast on the patio. She even cornered Mom at the mailboxes, sniping, "Some people don't belong in communities." Mom smiled sweetly. Good thing my husband spent 30 years defending community values in court. I was losing it, punching a wall in frustration, but Dad stayed calm. Don't let them win by making you snap, Ethan. Then Helen made her fatal mistake. She filed a court complaint against Dad, accusing him of judicial misconduct with a doctored VY Deo claiming he threatened the HOA. The summons came from Dad's own court, signed by his mentee, Judge Emily Parker. Dad laughed. They've just walked into my territory. Lily proved the VY Deo was fake, using her med school imaging skills. We filed a countersuit, alleging fraud and embezzlement, and requested a state audit of Horizon Solutions. Claire and Gwen shared 3 years of meeting minutes. Pro-VYing Helen's rules were never voted on. Tom organized a secret resident meeting where 30 homeowners shared stories of abuse. Susan, the treasurer, finally broke, handing over checks showing Helen and Robert's theft. An emergency HOA meeting, Helen tried to raise fees by 30 fan tram to fight legal threats. I stood to object, and Tom backed me up. You created this mess, Helen. Claire waved her minutes, exposing unapproved rules. The room erupted as residents silent for years spoke out. Ellen Carter, an elderly widow, shouted, "You find me due law 1,000 for rose bushes identical to yours." George Mason revealed due law 200,000 in consulting discrepancies. Susan stood, trembling. I signed falsified reports because Helen threatened me. Helen's control shattered. She screamed about slander and illegal recordings, but no one listened. Henry Brooks said, "For 10 years, you drove out anyone who didn't fit your VY Shown. No more." As Helen fled, Lily caught her alone, staring at a photo, whispering, "Everyone leaves me." It was almost sad until we learned she'd called a press conference to smear us. Big mistake. As she ranted about our criminal beehive VY, Dad appeared with the sheriff. Helen Carter, I've submitted EVY Denke of fraud and embezzlement. Expect a summons. The sheriff served her and Robert, who arrived just in time to get his own papers. Neighbors cheered as news cameras, meant to capture Helen's triumph, recorded her downfall. The audit later uncovered a $500,000 scheme, flipping homes at low prices through Robert's brother-in-law. Helen and Robert took plea deals, repaying the funds and fading into obscurity. We threw a massive barbecue, breaking every old rule loud music, kids on the lawn, and a sign reading violating HOA Rule 12. Noise over 60 dB. Susan, now interim president, slashed the rulebook and fixed the pool. Former residents, like Sophie, returned, their kids splashing freely. The Gonzalez family brought tamales, once called offensive by Helen, now devoured by all. Property values soared as Willow Creek became a true community. Dad grinned, admitting he bluffed about a county-wide ban. Sometimes it's about what they think you can do, he said, raising a glass. To an HOA that serves people, not power. Willow Creek bloomed diverse gardens, real friendships, and open meetings where everyone had a say. Dad VY said other neighborhoods, and Lily's research sparked state laws tightening HOA oversight. My house became a home, part of a community built on courage, not fear. Justice isn't just punishment. It's creating a place where everyone thrives. And that's exactly what we did. So what do you think? Was Helen just a control freak? Or was her VY shown something darker, classism, racism, or worse? Should HOAs have this much power, or are they breeding ground for petty tyrants? Have you faced an HOA horror story? Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe for more stories of everyday people taking down bullies. Let's keep the conversation going.